All right, thank you everyone for coming to the first Sheffield Devops meetup of 2022, and well, we'll skip over 2021. In fact, it's 2 years to the month since our last DevOps meetup down at Kelham Island, when we thought, oh yeah, we'll give it a couple of months hiatus and it'll all blow over. And here we are, 2 years later, first one back. A big thank you to the Floow for hosting us, for providing the pizza and the beers. Can't thank them enough, especially because I dropped it on Bart like 2 days ago. But, yep, that food was actually needed. That's my bad. We're streaming on YouTube, which is great. So please don't say anything outrageous if you are asking a question. If you want to do it anonymously, you can go to slido.com and use the code Sheffield Devops to ask a question if myself or Bart intimidates you in any way. You're the only one that laughed. What does that say? Sheffield Devops operates a code of conduct. You can see it at sheffielddevops.org.uk/COC. If you see or experience anything that contravenes that or skirts dangerously close to the edges of what's acceptable, feel free to talk to me about it or get me on Twitter on the at Sheffield Devops handle. And I think that is everything that I have to say. So, without further ado, first talk in 2 years. I'll hand you over to Bart.
All right, hello. Supposed to use a lapel mic, but yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming. Didn't expect so many of you today, so great to see you all. For those who know me, I'm Bartosz Debski. For those who don't know me, I'm Bartosz Debski. So I'm head of IT and IT operations and IT security at the Floow. I'm here 7.5 years, and I usually when I try to describe what I do in this company, I manage anything that requires powers in this building, and then they give me cloud. So, but if you don't know how to pronounce my name, just call me Bart. So today talk, it's not really technical. I mean, I'm more than happy to give you answers to technical questions if I know answer to them. But it is more kind of a story progressions from the inception of the company to where we are now in terms of technology. We're not going to bore you with HR stuff or any dramas. So let's start from the beginning. So Act 1. So how the company started. So I joined in 2014, but actually company started in 2012. There was Aldo, Paul, and Sam that started the business in Sheffield with the help of Sheffield Uni. And the plan is to create telematics services for the insurance companies. If you don't know what telematics are, I think the easiest description is if you ever seen a black box that is being attached to a car or a mobile app that gathers information when you're driving, we are the company that processes that data and gives it back to insurance. We don't provide black boxes, but we provide mobile solutions and also OEM, but we'll talk to that later. So in terms of technological startup, it was a classic startup. We got people with the money, we got people with the know-how, technology, and we got support from Sheffield Uni, which was great. It gives us lots of good people. But there was a few principles. So first of all, company started with AWS platform straight away as our production systems. So we didn't have this problem. We have something on-prem that we have to migrate. So we started with AWS from the start. It was a very startup approach. We got a small team that was doing pretty much everything. And they, at that time, they used anything they knew to use it. It all seems like a good fit. So the AWS structure was, to the best knowledge of that person at the time, it wasn't best practice. It doesn't mean it was wrong. It was just that's what they knew. Not necessarily the best, but it was working. We had one development environment, which was located on-prem. To be fair, it's still there. We still have on-prem presence. We have a small server room that we always because we were a small company, it was cheaper to buy hardware than try to run everything in AWS all the time, 24/7. But we had one development environment, and we hosted that for multiple clients. So you can already see potentially a problem, especially when you're running bespoke solutions. But what that gave us as a company, it gives us two big clients, which was Direct Line Group, and then in America it was ACG Group, which was one of the biggest insurance companies in America. And that gives us kind of a lift off. That allows us to build the company. So in terms of methodologies, we were waterfall. So we had two bespoke clients. So it was kind of natural if we're doing with a massive insurance corporation, they are backwards in terms of technology, methodology. There was like ITIL. So trying to do anything agile and work with them as an agile it was a challenge because they want to control release dates, what happens, and that kind of stuff. So we adopted waterfall methodology, but saying waterfall is nothing wrong. It just badly used is wrong. At that time, that was a good fit. We deployed all our Atlassian stack on premise because it was. I think I'm not sure it was a Jira Cloud in 2012. Was it? I don't know. So we deployed everything on premise. Company chose to use MongoDB Community Edition because it was free, and it was, I think, very hipster at the time. I'm not sure it's the hipster anymore. For our web frontend, we decided to use Ruby on Rails. For our backend, we decided to use Java. It was overall a simple architecture, and we use open source where possible because it's cheaper. For a startup, it's quite important. And monitoring wasn't pretty much automatically enrolled. If you enroll a new service, you need to provision everything pretty much manually. Now, this took us to something like this. This is kind of a classic diagram, our classic diagram of our infrastructure. It's just going quickly. So I got a pointer here. Hold on. Okay, you see that? So we got client front end where we're talking to our mobile apps, we're showing our client portals, and we have devices of any kind. On the other end, we got our client integration APIs. And in the middle, we got load balancers, different services that talking together, like API servers, process servers, our database, notifications, logging, everything. Everything cobbled together on AWS, but everything runs like a data center. So everything is 24/7. Everything requires each other to work. So there's massive monolith straight away. But it was working. It was working. The point of it at this stage is we were able to sell that as a product. It was working fairly well. And at that time, it was cutting-edge technology in terms of insurance. We were able to process any number of journeys, almost real time. We were able to give scores to a client almost real time, either through reporting or through API integration. So that's our kind of genesis. In 2014, we had a first big investment happening. Investment outside of the creation. And company decided we can't do kind of ad hoc stuff. One team does everything, do it as you can. So we as a company decided to hire more people, to make it more structured. So first investment, like I said, recognition that things need to be done with a more mature approach, not just, we're still startup, but if we're dealing with insurance, insurance companies are quite demanding in terms of what they want, and they will have it. But that comes with the security approach, how you deal with deployments, how you deal with internal office, all kind of things that require structure. One of the big problem was that we wasn't very good in terms of deployments. Yes, we can deploy, but this is something like in evening, all the company in the room trying to deployment, praying nothing breaks. very, very few nights. People sometimes working over weekends because something broke, and they try to be agile, roll forward. It doesn't work, so you're just wasting a weekend. Again, like I said, security for insurance companies. Like I said, they are. If you want to make a comparison, they're easily at least 10 years behind technology-wise, or they force third party to be very structured, very rigid, although they're required to be agile and just on a flick of a finger. So this is kind of a year where I join in as a army of one at this point, because it's still like employee number 26, small teams technically. So I joined the company to manage all the IT infrastructure. So first thing is all the single server is manually deployed. Somebody clicks the button in the AWS management console, and it's kind of problematic if you want to do a repeatable stuff. So in 2018, I did a talk about how Salt Stack works. And the reason I did that talk, because we adopted I adopted Salt Stack as a way to standardize our environments, our servers, and provide repeatable environments. Again, a bit of a explanation. Insurance companies don't like to share data between each other, and they will pay you extra just to make sure they will not be co-hosted with anybody else. So you kind of need to adopt to this as well, where we will provide separate virtual private clouds for each big insurance. So we need to make our platform repeatable quite heavily. And SaltStack allowed us to achieve that. So I did a talk in 2018 about it. We probably don't have a recording. We didn't stream that now. I still got a slide deck though. So SaltStack allows us to take all our services, put them into a platform as a code, and allow us to starting deploying the services for each VPC in the same fashion. Even if it's still you need to provision. There was no Terraform. If you deploy a server, you just put the bootstrap, and everything else Salt will do for you. So quite repeatable, massive improvement in terms of time of deployment of the platform for a client, and generally very easily manageable. If you ever work the Ansible, Puppet, or Chef, they're all kind of the same. Salt is in the same family. For me, I worked with Puppet for 7 years. I'll never go back. Salt for me was quite good one. But I know people love Chef and Ansible. Doesn't really matter. The kind of principles are the same. So at this point, we were able to take one environment and make it repeatable quite heavily. So our VPC deployment from 2 weeks technically came down to 2 days just for the infrastructure bit, not even mentioning the software deployment and testing. So that was quite a big gain. We at this point were using Atlassian Stack, so it was Atlassian, Jira, Bitbucket, and Bamboo. If you're old as I am, Bamboo was like orchestrations like Jenkins. Currently, I think Bamboo is dropped completely from the Jira cloud. They have a Bitbucket pipelines, but at the beginning, this allows us a somewhat automation of deployment. But it was the deployment to a server. So you build your artifact, and then you press a button, and it copies over to a server. It takes away the manual copying, but it literally does the same thing, manual copy, and then restarts and pray it works. And the problem with Bamboo was it was very UI driven. So you can't really have a code repository that will just drive that for you. So you cannot really repeat that. Every new environment requires you to copy everything in UI, put your steps in. It's really cumbersome. They changed that in the end. But at this point, with this, all our developers, can we use Jenkins, please? It's easier. I mean, it's like, why it's easier? because we can see a code and share it with each other. Like, okay, so so companies started adopting Jenkins. Still, we have a lot of things in Bamboo. So we started a very slow and painful migration. I must say, till this day, we fully did not migrate from Bamboo. Because, and I'll explain that in a minute. Deployment of Salt Stack, kind of more newer, although Jenkins is for years, kind of more developer-friendly tools to deploy stuff makes us quicker. So we started making a progress on how we can deploy quicker. But we don't deploy quicker. I mean, the problem is we take away, introduce number of tools, but they still doesn't make us going faster as much as we want. So that's why it's a picture of gearbox. It's like if you ever had an Audi or Volkswagen, they got a Tiptronic gearbox. Everything's automated, but you still want to press the buttons. So it's kind of misses the point of automatic gearbox. It's same here. We're trying to create a lot of stuff that allows us to be automatic, but we still hold the rein. We need to press the button. I mean, somebody needs to approve stuff, and lots. And so we're still wasting lots of time in deployment. Promotion between the environments is all over the place. Whoop, sorry, slippy fingers. All over the place. What I mean by that? Yes, we got Salt Stack and a universal deployment, but if you're doing a Bamboo deployment and you're going from environment to deploy, you're doing copy of that artifact to the completely different server every time. So you're not actually promoting the dev build. You're promoting dev artifact, but everything else could be different. And that generates a lot of problems, especially in Ruby on Rails. If you have to precompile assets on a target server, you're just wasting time and pain. And if people choose gems, if the developer choose the gems that are not on the server, we here all night. So it's lots of fun. We have lots of regression QA because our business depends on the mobile apps. We hired lots of people that does clicking buttons on mobiles, driving cars, the recording journeys. But also we have a problem where we're not integrating our QA into build process. So it's a classic. As far as I know, it's a classic problem in many companies that try to move into automation. But there's always something that doesn't work, and we cannot change it, or is it not enough time, not enough money, not enough people? Yeah, any excuse you want. So we're still relying heavily on regression in QA, and that leads us ultimately to bad client experience. When we're saying we're doing a release, we're saying it should be no more than half a day. It shouldn't be half a day. Usually it's 2 days. Not because we want to, because we have all those problems. And all your Salt Stack, all the Jenkins doesn't help. People mindset is different. So we as a company, we need to, we all understand it's not working. But we don't have people to do it. And we also don't have time, like, when you're reading all those great DevOps books about how you should doing it, usually examples of a big corporation that just have money on the side for a team to do R&D and then implement and integrate. In a small company, that's impossible. So my team decided, let's do something about it. Okay, we got a platform services, platform developers that got all the hands tied up with other projects. What we as a IT ops, we call ourselves DevOps, but we kind of, sysops more like. What can we do to make it better for our company? So let's take what we have and what we can do with it. So we discover it's not, again, nothing new, but so let's try services images. So repeatable image that we can promote between environment. So our criteria is we're going to deploy that for any client, because although we got multiple environments, multiple VPCs, the core systems are exactly the same. There will be some auxiliaries that are different, like integrations, because they got different systems to integrate with, or some extra database features that not featured further. So that's fairly repeatable environment. What we wanted to do is also environment auto discovery. So we don't want image for each separate VPC. Automated build process at the moment. SaltStack is automating the server, but everything is kind of manual. And we need to work with existing setup. Carmelo loves this word. Carmelo worked with us, and he had that task before as well as a developer. So what we mean by that, we cannot take any development time to do it. We cannot change or build anything that will impact current operations. So what we came up with is AWS AMIs. And what we did, so we take all our Java artifact that is built on Bamboo. We push it to a Jenkins with a Packer, which will create as AWS AMI. So we'll take Jenkins on a Jenkins levels here on that pipeline. we'll build. We'll take AWS AMI Ubuntu image, work with Salt to do all the hardening, all the prep, and then on top of that, add that Java artifact. And hey presto, we got AWS AMI. On top of that here, it's built that when it starts with bootstrapping, it searches for SaltStack for anything property-wise for the services to run based on out of the discovery of the environment it's in. Discovery is heavily dependent on DNS. So if you naming convention is very important. And then we'll put that into Terraform code, which Terraform code will apply that to EC2. Either it's going to be auto-scaling group, spot instance, anything that works in EC2. But when it starts up, it will just look for a SaltStack for config, which is SaltStack have a pillar, which is like a non-cacheable configuration module. I will pick it up and it starts working. And this, because of this, we achieved what we could, what we set out to do. We didn't touch any platform work. We just took what they kind of their end result, and we were able to propagate between AWS environments exactly the same build. That reduced deployment from, let's say, 2 hours to 5 minutes, because we just press as long as the Terraform code is already there. And still, whoops, sorry. It's too many buttons. We choose to do manual application of Terraform because we have this problem with QA. We still do a regression, so we need to know where it goes, and that needs to be scheduled. And working with insurance company, they need to know when they're going to deploy, and so they're going to be waiting and all this kind of stuff. So it kind of makes sense to do kind of manual deployment at the moment. And then obviously it was latest and greatest things AWS Lambdas. And yes, we have it. We have this. So if you go back here, there's nothing about Lambdas. But while we're doing this, we're starting pushing people on the platform side. If you're doing service that just runs for a particular job, we don't have a 24/7 server running for it. Build a function. Build a function will run in Lambda with a trigger, with SNS queues and that kind of stuff. And till this day, we got in production, the most Lambdas we have is IT operations for database snapshotting, all the tidy up work. And the production-wise from the code base, we got 2 Lambdas that are considered as a product. So we're not there. We're not there where we should be. There's not enough queuing in place. Everything is it works. It works, but if you are a DevOps with all the trainings you need, and you come in, you'll start screaming. Why does this? Why this doesn't trigger this small service? Why why it doesn't have a queue behind it? Why is it 1 gigabyte for an image? How much memory you need to run it? That kind of things, So heavily unoptimized. But again, a trapping of a small company where many people need to do many things. And yes, people like to do Lambdas. Do they know how to do Lambdas? Kind of, best effort. Well, you think, where's Docker? Docker was everywhere last decade. So we on purpose avoided Docker in the early years because all the developers want to do Docker. Nobody knew of them know how to do Docker properly. and they had no perceptions that you need to manage all the swarms, Kubernetes, all kind of stuff. And there were at the beginning there were problems with layers of operating systems. And so we just said, just don't play around because you just make it harder for us. But we do have Docker, and Ruby on Rails are our prime example where this is at this point the Ruby on Rails. So we did the Java services, all the deployments of Java service through IMI. We got services built through SaltStack, which no longer are being built manually, because when we do it with Terraform, it just spits it out ready. But Ruby on Rails still is persistent because we have kind of legacy portals that clients still want them, but don't want to pay to update them. So we have to maintain them as they are. And again, we're still compiling on server. So image magic, if you ever work with Ruby on Rails and image magic gem, it's nightmare. Especially when I think there's a horror story when we were deploying our internal tool, and one of our developers used the bleeding edge of image magic on Mac from Homebrew, and suddenly it doesn't work on Linux because the version is too new, and the operating system we are using doesn't have that package. Manual compile of image magic, and then making sure that RubyGen compiles against it. 2 days lost. So yeah, not fun in any way. So again, going back to IMI services, the same principles. Can't change anything. Can't because if you're doing a Docker image. You should best practices is you just not take what you have and just put it in an image into Docker. It's running, but we had to do this in a way because we had no resource technically, and we didn't have a proper know-how in a business to do it better way, especially when you're doing something in a back that client don't want you to do, but we want to make our life easier. So we did Docker images in a loose sense of the word that just takes away a pain of compiling on the server. We're compiling that in a Jenkins pipeline, splits the Docker image into Docker registry. Again, kind of same as IMI service in a way, but it works. It at this point we have no problems. We love Ruby to a point that I don't have to touch it. So at this point, and this is where we are now, to be fair. And you think, oh, why you don't do anything like crazy stuff? No DevOps, no cloud formations, no whichever technology you use. The problem is that it's always not enough people. During COVID, and you can pretty much write off the last 2 years, COVID wiped pretty much anything in terms of getting hires to the point that can work with us, because you can onboard person remotely. You have to onboard person remotely. All the knowledge transfer is not the same. I know I like work from home as well, but onboarding people, it's a nightmare. And then we had this, it's not a technology problem, but prices going up suddenly because everybody works remote, so they can work anywhere in the country. It becomes challenging for a company which is pre-COVID was about 130, post-COVID were 99-ish. So and then we have currently we're running overall 12 VPCs, around 700 services overall across massive databases with lots of PIA data, and we got deployment pipelines as much as we can optimized, but there's still lots of manual things to do. So again, we need to change. So as conveniently COVID kind of Putin make us forget about COVID, so COVID doesn't exist anymore. But because we came back to offices, and the company knows where it is. We understand we need to push it forward. We can't just perpetuate all this all the time. And we understand as well we don't have right know-how in the company to do it, including myself. I'm usually spending most of my weekdays in meetings instead of trying reading new technologies. So it's management, more of management than technology. but we understand this and we want to change this. So at this point, our deployment still takes too long. We do agile kind of. We got guilds. We got DevOps kind of. I mean, all the people have the right heart, but if you're doing a DevOps, it's not just one person. It's a whole team doing certain things, enable each other. So it's not there. Currently, all my resources one team and work as a service department where other agile teams requesting a resource. So you already have a bottleneck straight away. And as we came to know in a number of years, our platforms have limitations. Yes, you can scale horizontally. Yes, you can scale vertically. But if you ever work with Mongo and you tell me that community edition is great for sharding, I will shoot you. It's not. They make it on purpose that you want to buy their commercial solution to manage it. So we use doing replica sets, if you know Mongo. But the replica set comes to the point where it's still single primary with limited IOPS, with limited memory and all that. You can manage it, but again, it's just one cog of many that needs to be working well. So scaling and management of the platform comes down very often. The database can handle it. You can auto scale what you want apart from it. But if we're running database self-hosted in a way, still AWS, but self-hosted, that's your bottleneck. So we understand all this, right? We want to do agile. Going back to agile, like I said, we got teams, but lack of resource make it those teams not really agile. We got Scrum Masters, we got QA, platform developers, all kind of stuff. But then it comes down, enable a service or redo something properly. Ops is tied in doing release for 2 days. so not fun. So our roadmap. So we want to go fully agile, right? We want to have proper DevOps teams, meaning that all the major teams that doing particular services have own resource and they are self-contained. They're self-enabled, but also controlled to own this. We have a plan and I've seen the plan. I've been part of the plan. Dedicated teams to tackle our monolith. Our monolith, in a way, it's working, right? And if it's working, why touch it? Well, we have to touch it because if we not touch it, we have this capacity problems. We don't want to just be a small company that delivers like 5-6 clients and it's going to work to a point. We need to expand. We need to expand, and with expansions, we need to be able to sustain any load, any capacity that may come to us. And we are optimistic. We're optimistic. We need to still, while we work on monolith, we still need to maintain the monolith. So automate the hell out of it. And there is a plan already. We're planning to, again, in an agile type fashion, step by step, eliminate the manual steps and introduce the testing, back-end testing. Because we are fully aware that we not suddenly overnight take our monolith and split it, explode it apart to microservices straight away. So and when you have the bespoke clients don't really care what you have on the back as long as it's working. And you don't really want to tackle this if you don't have to, providing it's working fine. So you need to pick your battle. We want to have a serverless approach straight away. So we didn't do Docker images or any container images, but maybe images is no longer the best thing. We need to take an approach where we take all our options, which is go fully serverless. We so far kind of shied away of integrating from embedding ourselves into AWS. But in order to cut costs long term, make it far more scalable systems, far more agile system, not agile, microservice systems. You need to go kind of this way. They want you to go on a cloud this way, and we understand some service might run this of that, but generally plan is to be fully microservice or serverless where we can. And a very important thing for us is moving to asynchronous platforms. So currently, monolith, it kind of really depends on each other. It goes from A to Z. We have queuing systems, yes, but those queuing systems are far cry where it should be. So we want to build a system that we send a request and then you wait for a return when it's ready, instead of waiting for a timeout, or making sure that the system don't break halfway through because something didn't work. Some service didn't work at this point, so the system will barf. So asynchronous for us is very important. I think at this point we are very, very synchronous in terms of our data flow. And this comes to now. On 10 years of our anniversary, on 28th of February, we announced we got acquired by a company called Autonomo. You probably never heard of it. That's fine. That's fine. It's a company that managed to persuade pretty much every car manufacturer to give their all the data from the cars. So imagine when we can harvest autonomous power of vehicle data, combined with our insurance proposition, and you have probably we think that a perfect product. In terms of insurance, if you don't know, if you work in telematics sphere, there's always barrier of entry, where in UK you have under 25 is the main market for insurance with the black box devices. So insurance want to have a black box device fitted in a car, so they cannot tamper, they cannot remove it. So cost of for insurance is quite great. And in order to reduce that cost, we're trying to go with mobile devices, but mobile device, you can take device, forget, whatever. If you got a car that is your device, you cannot forget your car. So obviously, the propagation of the market is depends which country have, propagation of new cars. But fair to say, majority of the Western countries have a fairly quick rotations of cars in terms of age. So I think they currently gather around 55 million of data. 55 million cars, data from the 55 million cars each day. So it's a quite powerful database to dig into. And we are coming into Autonomo because we are specialists in the telematics service. We are fairly small, we are fairly known in the business. So this is the synergy that we need. But it also enable us all this serverless stuff we talked about. That's our third investment at the moment that will enable us to grow, hire the right people to build the system for us, and then train our staff to do it, so we can support it. And this is the segue to work for us. If you got skills. I don't have any jobs jobs portfolio but we're looking for all kind of engineers in serverless and cloud-based systems, business analysis, all kind of stuff, all kind of people. So if you know your stuff, we're looking for you, and just send us email, right? Send us email. But yeah, this is all I have to say. So thank you very much for listening. Any questions? When the Lambda function doesn't work. Okay. So can you shorten your question so I can repeat it, please? So what's the problem? You got a problem with the Lambda. Right. Okay. So the question, just for a stream, has been asked. So what will happen if you're deploying all these microservices backend stack with lambdas? Something doesn't work, and how you roll back. So what we currently do with our lambdas and images, we apply tags. So we manage everything by tag. So if we in Terraform, you can specify a tag, and you can roll back to that tag, all those services back to that tag. That's what we're currently doing it. Okay. It's I think containers, Docker containers on registry, lambdas, they all have tag functions, which we quite widely use because how we currently work, we have development, staging, and production environment, and we can propagate based on a tag between environments on lambdas. So the lambda can be updated, and we then just apply the right tag. So we can point the right tag to be used. Okay, well, great. Any other questions? Yes. Yeah, good question. So the question is about when we're going agile, will we have a siloed department or we upskill teams, right? So the answer is currently the plan is assess the current skill set within our teams we have, while we segregating teams to a brand new structure. We accepting and we know that we have to hire either a new permanent staff or new contractors to deliver certain goals. The bit of for the contractors, if we hire them, is they need to produce documentation and they need to upskill current staff able to do it. We don't have, I mean, being brutally honest, we don't have enough knowledge in the kind of DevOps sphere exactly to be self-sufficient. That's why we need people more. But we don't want to left people out. I think usual thing is, you know, we want to give all the existing stuff, all the new shiny stuff and toys to play with, but they really kind of potentially don't know how to play with them. So we need to show them how to do it. And so the plan is any new services or any decoupling of the monolith services might be done by siloed teams. So we have siloed teams for different microservices. And if that part of that team is to create documentation and upskill current staff in order to support it. Absolutely, yeah. We have this problem where we currently cross-sharing a lot of resource, and that doesn't work at all. It's just the bottlenecks, yeah. Of course. So we're currently using Fargate, but we recognize Fargate is not cheap, so we're using Fargate for ad hoc jobs. So you know, not long persistent jobs. One of the examples, for example, we had a problem. It's not mentioned here. We have a data science department, and they run. They have a half a terabyte of RAM in a server in a Sheffield server room with I don't know how many cores, and lots of terabytes of data. But the problem is, if you got a number of data scientists, they're going to be fighting for a resource. So we told data science what is Fargate, how to build crude image, and run it on Fargate just for that. And so that kind of Fargate at the moment is a very convenient way of doing ad hoc jobs for us. Sure, it's a valid question. It's a valid question. So the question is, what are we going to do with Mongo instead of Mongo? So the choice of Mongo at the beginning was kind of because it was hipster, I think. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't a bad choice per se. It was working. But what we always did in Mongo, we structured our data. So we're using that as a document database in a way. but we still, before the data hit the database, we structured it to a state that actually looks like relational. But obviously, Mongo doesn't have a relational database capability, so we can't do queries. So you need to offload the data, query on a server, and that's your lot. So a company recognized that that is no longer a valid solution. It's great for storing data, but it doesn't do us good at the moment. If we are living in an age, especially for big companies, they want data, analysis of data, and that Mongo database is not the it's not the backend for BI tools. Every company, just a sec, if I may, every company we spoke about BI, they wanted just to create a connector to some kind of SQL. So at this point, we're evaluating. People want to use Postgres. I don't mind. I don't, if it's running on EBS, I don't have to manage. Not EBS. RDS, sorry, RDS. I don't have to manage, but fine. So yeah, probably Postgres, but we're also considering AWS data lake architectures. So it will be, the part of data will be a separate platform on its own. It's not decided yet, but that's something that we were considering. Sure, sure. I think in a way, we kind of want to constrain ourselves to what AWS have in terms of a service because we don't want to manage. Mongo showed us that I think one of our largest database for a single client is over 6 terabytes. It's not massive, right? It's not massive. But if you start hitting 40,000 concurrent connections a minute, it becomes a problem in IOPS bottlenecks and in AWS. And then you take to account replication. So if you're self-hosting database, it should be in a different availability zones in a single region. Every replication costs you money. So I think kind of pick your battle. There was a question. Influx, yeah, influx. Yeah, yes, yes, and that's why our current developers are really in favor of Postgres. Influx is kind of never been on the radar of our developers. I can't really exactly say why, but we've been constrained into Mongo for years. Again, trapping of a small company, we're developing the database backend to the existing service is a nightmare. So we're pretty much at this point, our plan is to maintain what we currently have in the current form and automated the hell of it. So it is as smooth as possible in kind of business as usual maintenance, not exactly maybe touch it too much, and shift completely away for the new services and generate new environments completely. We don't plan to migrate the data because with the insurance as well, that you have this retention of a client where in UK is 1 year usually. You have the kind of cycle. I think what was it? In America is like a half a year, something. So you can have a cycle where you can propose a new product and migrate the client into a new product with a certain cycle. So that's what we kind of more looking into practical what we actually can do. Yeah. Yeah. So the question, I mean, how many people you got in this team anyway? Okay, hi everybody. So the question is about upskilling internal staff versus hiring a new one. We definitely want. Being honest again, we have very little time for internal learning. We tell people they can learn, but with the current workload we have, it's pretty much impossible in the work time. So, again, if we're developing new service auxiliary to current systems, you can't really develop that in a way like, we do it with Docker image like as a proper microservice with all this queuing and stuff, and everybody says, why you need like 2 queues just to run one? So we definitely want to keep our current stuff. It's for us, it's very vital to have them. And I think staff understand, the staff wants to learn new things, and that is the plan. So when we are having new layout of our company in terms of guilds and departments and all that, we didn't shove all the stuff into one side. You just boring shit. You are working with the people that we can hire potentially, so you will get full front of what we're doing, so you can pick the knowledge there. That's the plan. Yeah, I mean, I like to love to tell you that we can send our company like for a week for training, but we do that, but more of a like departments have allowance to go to conferences, that kind of stuff. But it's more kind of social thing and a discovery, not actual training. Thank you. Anything else? Yes. Not yet, but yes. Yeah, good question. The question is how we store our data, how we manage our data in a way, retention-wise. Yeah. So currently we don't have that data from Autonomo yet. We're hoping we'll get them very soon. The current situation is dependent on the client. So our platform, we stored our raw data in S3. We got tiered buckets. So every year goes to like a next tier. We also need to take into account that some customers doesn't want they don't want their data tiered because they telling we can take them anytime we want, because they're technically from ownership, they are the owner of the data. So where we can, we tier them. So we got a product solution, so product environments that are multi-tenant, and the client doesn't really have a power there to say. So they are heavily tiered. We do not drop the data because I think insurance in UK, I think 6 years you need to keep the data. So it's quite long retention. But for example, give you an example, we got a product we're going to be hopefully launching in Far East, where the retention of data is very not important. The last 3 months or something is really important because there's so much people you don't really care, to be fair. I think that's the scale of magnitude, I think, to the point. And we developed the platform we can drop the data based on the month. So it depends on the country, to be fair, because and if it's a bespoke client, it kind of dictates what retention they want. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I love your question. Thank you. That's fine. So that's actually my job as well. So question is about how our data governance goes into regards to the ISO or any other framework. So we are GDPR compliant. We are data processor, not the data owner, for all the bespoke solutions in Europe. That is heavily controlled. It's kind of almost like a part of the problem in a way of enabling automation, because if you're doing agile, it depends on who you talk to with. Some people say developers have access to everything because they own it, but you're going to data, and that's a big danger zone. So we currently manage it that my team is the only one that can access data. We are ISO 27001 compliant for like 3 years now. We are GDPR compliant. We are not SOC 2 compliant because nobody forced us yet. But we're pretty much there. The difference is how it changed our approach to stuff. It's not PCI, if you like. It's not really that strict. As long as I think there's quite a lot of misconceptions with GDPR, but for example, our clients tell their end user customers they can do whatever they want with the data, and they're already GDPR compliant. That sense, they sign the contract, and they can do whatever they like. They can process in the contracts you'll have. They can process anywhere in the world. We don't. That doesn't kind of flow to us automatically. We are still governed what our insurance company, our client wants to do. And in the GDPR is what we do. All the European clients, data doesn't leave Europe. Actually, the data doesn't leave Ireland in AWS. In America, data doesn't leave North Virginia. We got a client in Canada. Regulations slightly different, but mainly very similar to the American ones. Data doesn't leave Canada. For example, we're looking into Far East, which is completely different. Different landscape, but they're very, very protective. They have own version of GDPR. So because we got repeatable environments as we currently have, we can deploy anything as long as the AWS region is there. We can deploy it completely self-sufficient. And just because it's kind of an evolution of what we have, that we are contained. We deployed even in China once in co-location because the China said you can't do anything outside of China. It creates challenges, but we just hired a data architect who is really well versed in GDPR in all these frameworks, just to work with us to ensure that any new products are compliant. Again, till this point, it was easier to deny people certain things and don't worry about, oh, how are we going to do this or that, because we got people that can manage that thing, and everything is written in ISO policies and our governance, so it is all fine. Not a massive problem, put it this way. Sorry, it was a long answer, but not a massive problem. Sure. Yes. Answer is the question is with certification like ISO actually make the stuff better, than not more of a chore, if you like. Yes, for us we had a number of things we had to automate, mundane stuff like access requests. So we have an access request system built in Jira. And maybe Jira is not the best possible system to do it, but it kind of works. When we create a ticket with access request, when approved by a right person, ticket is automatically actioned and access being provided automatically and then revoked automatically. So, for example, that's the one way of, it was a fun job to do, it works, and we have to worry about it. Perfect example of automation. Otherwise, we'll have to have some kind of manual sign-offs. So it does, yes, it does work, because our current internal systems, well, ISO is kind of funny in a way, where it can let you get away with a lot of things as long as you accept the risk. But we're not trying to be just, okay, just sign it off. Because then our insurance company comes in and does the audit, and it's like, hold on a minute. So where we could, we automated our mundane admin tasks to enable that with the technology. Not a big problem. Not a big problem. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yes. For all the services that are being deployed with SaltStack and services that are running load balancers, that kind of stuff, we use Insinga 2 at the moment. But we recognize that it kind of becomes a dinosaur if you're doing microservices and you're switching the logging, the pattern where the service kind of sits behind some kind of load balancer of sorts or gateway. So we and logging wise, we were using RSyslog. But again, that changes. So all our new environments are now we're using Grafana Loki. Is it right? Yeah. Loki, and we're using quite heavily metrics. So our metric system, which is Grafana, where we use Grafana as a single pane of glass for CloudWatch stuff, for Loki, and anything we built in between for our database stuff. Because what we do, we quite heavily, because it's a custom database, you kind of want to own metrics in a way. So we all kind of put it to one point. So yeah, mix of everything in a way, but we kind of contain to 4 things. So CloudWatch, Insinga, Loki, and then on top of it, some custom metrics with the Grafana. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for questions. Thank you. Obviously, beer and pizza as much as you can. Take home if you can. Nobody's going to be crying.
Yeah, thank you, Bart. Brilliant. Minus 10 points for using the word synergy, though, non-ironically. I don't think I did spot that. So yeah, like Bart says, grab the pizza and the beer. I fetched 2 crates. I don't know if it was needed, but I can't take it home, otherwise I'll have questions asked. Call for help. If anyone has a talk that they'd like to do at Sheffield Devops, anything goes. Maybe not like how we transitioned to remote working in 2019, 2020, because unless you did something really special, that's kind of like everyone's done that. But any talks that you fancy doing, if you message us on Twitter at Sheffield Devops, or if you email ols@sheffielddevops.org.uk, that'll come to me. I think that's everything. Yeah, thank you very much. Cheers. Oh, and thanks for watching it on the stream as well. Thank you.